Okay, now we're going to get started on finishing, now that all the glue is dried, and doesn't that fireplace look nice? Okay, we're going to start out by doing some staining and some painting. So first of all, let's take the roof piece. Again, it's got two sides to it. It's got the scored side and it's got the plain side. This is the side that the shingles will attach to. This is the inside. Okay, so we are going to start out with some white paint. And a cloth that we can dry brush. Now, the actual design of this cabin does not include roof rafters. However, there's nothing stopping you from adding rafters if that's what you want to do. There's just one main truss to hold up the got some stray rocks hanging around here to hold up the floor of the sleeping loft. Part of the reason for painting all of this white is to sort of brighten up the interior of the cabin. A lot of times the colors that you choose will make your vignette or your room box either jump out at you or sort of recede into the bushes. Because this cabin is, the way I visualized it, was built in a period of time where it's not electrified. Okay. It's going to cost, it's 20 miles from the nearest electrical pole, and the owners did not want to invest in bringing in electric for that far. So it operates off lanterns and all that kind of thing. And when you're using lanterns and candles, you really want a very light interior to your cabin, or it'll be to reflect the light. So it's going to be very dark if you put a darker color on the inside, or even if you stain most of it, it would be pretty dark. Okay, now it's just forgot to use some wax paper to protect our surface, so before everything dries too much, let's just clean it off. Okay, there's the roof, so we'll just set that aside to dry, and of course the silly thing is trying to warp a bit, so we'll put it underneath something fairly heavy while it dries. Okay, now what you need is your floor for your sleeping loft. Okay, we need to stain this. Okay, we should put that aside to dry a little bit. And last, we need the trusses that is going to support the sleeping loft. Okay, now this strip. What on earth is that? Okay, we're going to be using this to, I'm going to show you something here. When you put the roof on, you will notice that there is a slot down the back there, okay? We're going to paint that white in a second, and we're going to use a filler strip. So I'm going to put this back where I had it drying. And before we do that, we're going to actually install our truss, okay, which is going to go like that. If you'll notice, it snugs right up close to the door frame. And we've got a clamp here to hold it in place. Okay, so let's get a little bit of glue out. Let us attempt to try and glue things using glue, not using white paint. One of the little downfalls of working with this stuff that I hadn't realized before. Okay, so let's get the glue spreader here. And we're just going to run glue down this one wall here. Now we're not going to glue the other, so it's just down this one side, okay? We're not going to worry about gluing this other end down at the moment. Where's my clamp gone? Okay, that'll hold it nice and tight while the glue dries. Okay, so let's just set that down. Okay, now we're going to go back to our white paint. Only this time we're going to paint the strip wood, and we're going to paint it on 3 sides. Okay. We're going to need, this is the 1/16 inch strip wood. We're going to use some to cover up the slot between the roof and the battens on the outside. We're going to use some to provide supports for our loft floor. Now, I debated pre-cutting this for you, and then realized that depending on exactly how you've built your cabin, how you've installed your door frame, there are going to be slight differences. So I decided that I would just leave it with the strip wood and let you cut your own pieces that are the correct length. And I'll show you where these pieces go. So we've got our wood pretty well painted there. So, as I said, the first piece is going to go along here, between the 2 end walls. So we can measure this right now. Oh dear, do you ever measure something and then lose where you measured it to? Okay, so that is our first piece. Now the second piece is going to run along here, so it will be the length of this wall. And the third piece fits between this wall, oops, where's the painted end? Between this wall and this, but it is going to have this glued in place first. In fact, I think what we're going to do is change that around a little bit. Let's measure this one first. So, okay, now this is going to fit. Okay, if you look at the inside of this, okay, I used a piece of scrap wood to cut this truss, that's why it's striped. Your floor, which I've managed to muck up with white paint, the floor is going to fit in like this. Now you'll see that it's a little snug, so again, depending on the exact sizes, we may need to do some changing around here, do a little sanding. This is an important piece to dry fit. Okay, it's still... okay, that's pretty good. Now you'll see that it lines up with the top of the truss. So what we're going to do is we need to install this short piece here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the clamp off. Maybe easier said than done. Okay, we'll take the clamp off. Set that aside. Now, it's going to be easier to do this by putting the cabin on its front. Okay? And we're going to put a little bit of glue along here. Oops. Yeah, I think it actually might be easier to use my tweezers here to put it in place properly. Okay, so it's going to line up just above the window frame and just below, there we go, right there, just below Now, I don't know if you can see this, but if you look from this side, you can see that piece of wood is just below the bottom of this truss. So that when our floor is placed on top of it, it is going to line up perfectly with our truss. Okay? Okay, so now take that piece I cut improperly the first time. I'm going to line it up. I'll recut it. Make sure it's the right length. Okay, now you see I've got my cabin sitting on end here to install this next piece. So we put some glue on the unpainted piece. Like that. It is going to line up across here. Okay, can you see where that goes now? That goes along here, so that it is parallel with and the same height as the piece that we installed at the front. Now there's your supports for your floor. Okay. Now I'm just going to clamp this for a second and let it sit, and I'll be back when the glue is dried. Okay, now let's take our last piece of wood that we cut, and we're going to apply glue to the bottom edge of it, the unpainted piece at the bottom. Okay, let's get the excess off the sides here. Okay, now we're going to just put this in place along the top between the end walls and as tight up to the truss as possible. Now I want you to quickly, while the glue is still wet, I want you to take your roof and put it in place, and you'll notice that it will push in the supports. Can you see that? That it just pushed it in a little bit? Okay, so push it in, snug it up. Okay, you can now take your roof off, and you'll see that it has been pushed into place like that. Okay, one last check. Okay, I'm just going to sit here and hold this. You don't need to watch me do that, so I'm going to pause the tape. Okay, now we are actually going to put our floor in place. So what we need to do is run a little bit of glue along the top of our supports here. Now of course one side will be open. Just running our glue along the top edge of these supports, and along the edge of the floor that is going to snug up to the edge of the truss. Okay, so now we can put it in place and snug that up. Use your finger to just make sure that you're not slopping below the edge of the truss. Okay, now we'll put the roof on. Okay, So we need to apply glue along these edges here. So along the top of the chimney and down the sides, also on the truss. Okay. Now, your roof has got to have an equal amount of overhang on both sides, like that. And it has to be held in place. I wish somebody would figure out a set of clamps that would work on diagonal. So let's just see if this will work. Ah, it does work. See, I've done that. I've just put that on one corner and that up there. So now I can turn this around and do the same thing on this side. Always makes me nervous when I hear that kind of a crack. I'm never not sure what. And somehow we've managed to get a rock loose from the chimney in there. Okay, so you can see what our cabin in the woods is starting to look like. Okay, I'm going to put that all aside and let everything dry. Okay, now the glue's all dry. At least we hope it's all dry. We can take this apart and do the very last piece for here's our roof piece. And it, of course, is going to fit like so. You see that? How it's going to fit? Now, I've discovered that I'm going to need to do some sanding right in here because that does not. Okay, so I'm just going to take this and sand it, and I will be. Okay, now we're back with a nice smooth sanded piece here. That should fit perfectly. There. Okay, so we have 2 more bits of gluing to do. And then our cabin is pretty well complete except for the rafters. Okay, so we are going to apply our glue along these edges here. And along the roof edge. and down this edge here. Okay, now we can put our roof in place like that. And we can making sure this is lined up. On here. And we can Okay, I've just discovered that there's something. Aha! There's a rock. One of the fireplace rocks was a little out of place, so I just had to remove it. Okay. And of course our chimney is going to fit down here once we've got our shingles on. So that is the end of the cabin except for the shingling, which will be on a separate video. Now we've just got one last little thing we have to do here. And that is no, I guess we don't have anything left we have to do. Okay, so let's put that aside, let the glue dry, and go on to the creation of the porch.